Hi everyone, today I wanted to talk about brain infections, but before we talk about brain infections, we need to understand what the brain does, its defense mechanisms that we naturally have in our body, and then talk about infections briefly. So our brain is one of the most important organs we have because it controls everything in our body. It controls movement. That's why when some parts of your brain are affected, people can't move parts of their body. It controls our heart beating, it controls breathing, it controls everything. It even controls our immune system to a certain degree. So fever, which is a protective immune system mechanism, is controlled by your brain. So your brain is the most important processing center, and also it controls our emotions and memories and all of that. So now that we know that the brain is very, very important, because it's so important, naturally our body has extra defense mechanisms to protect it in comparison to other organs. So the brain is protected by many different layers, and one of the primary defenses is the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is like a security system for your brain, and it's made up of cells that line the blood vessels in the brain, and they act as a filter which let in essential nutrients while also keeping out harmful substances and pathogens. So that blood-brain barrier is very important. This is also why not all drugs can get into your brain. So another important protective layer is the cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF. CSF is a clear fluid that surrounds the brain and our spinal cord, and it helps provide cushioning and act as a shock absorber. It also helps remove waste products, and it delivers nutrients to our brain tissue. CSF fluid is produced in special areas in our brain, and it flows through our brain and spinal cord. So it's very important. So we have blood-brain barrier and CSF fluid. Despite these defenses, some pathogens can get through this. And it's not that common, but they can, and they can cause infections. So now we'll get into brain infections. One common brain infection is meningitis. Meningitis is inflammation of the protective membranes that cover our brain and spinal cord, which are called the meninges. It can be caused by bacteria, viruses, fungus, and when they cause this inflammation, it's pretty bad. Bacterial meningitis is very dangerous and requires immediate medical attention. It requires antibiotics. All of them are bad, but when we think of bacterial meningitis, it involves bacteria like Neisseria meningitidis, Streptococcus pneumoniae, other bacteria. These bacteria have special adaptations that allow them to cross the blood-brain barrier, and when they're inside, they make copies of themselves which trigger an immune response, and this causes inflammation in the meninges, which leads to swelling and increased pressure inside the skull. And this disrupts CSF flow, so it's very bad for you. Another type of brain infection is encephalitis, which is inflammation of the brain itself. It can be caused by viruses, certain viruses like herpes viruses, West Nile virus, and so there's other viruses that can get in. And at the cellular level, these viruses will infect neurons, which are the brain's nerve cells are called neurons, and glial cells, which support cells in the brain, which leads to cell death and inflammation. So some viruses can lie dormant in your body and reactivate to cause encephalitis, which primarily affects different parts of the brain. There's also brain abscesses, which are another type of brain infection. This occurs when a pocket of pus forms in the brain due to a bacterial or fungal infection. Common bacteria that are involved in this are Staphylococcus or Streptococcus. Fungus like Aspergillus, which is a type of mold, can affect people, especially in immunocompromised people. At the cellular level, our immune system responds to this by sending white blood cells to the site of infection, and this results in formation of pus, which is basically dead cells, bacteria and immune cells, and the body tries to wall off the infection, leading to this abscess. The immune response to these infections involves many different cells. Microglia, which are the brain's resident immune cells, play an important role. They detect pathogens like bacteria and viruses, and they release cytokines, which are signaling molecules that attract other immune cells to the site of infection. So while this response tries to eliminate the pathogen, it leads to inflammation, and too much inflammation anywhere in your body is not good, especially when it's happening in your brain.